you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away, as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope you're all doing well in the world right now.
Hello everyone, Stu here. This is a good one because I watched this film before him thinking that he would have seen it and he would have mentioned it to me. The fact that I knew going in it was so awful. Megalopolis, this is not later. That it was so awful that everyone hated it. And yet there was some people saying it was a visionary. I thought, okay, I'll give it to Stu. I'll watch it in the middle of the afternoon. No distractions, no nothing. And then that happened. And have I got the urge to go and see any of that film again? No, never in my entire life.
Because when we were doing our top fives of the year and we had the one question about like the worst things that you saw last year, this was yours, wasn't it? This was the worst thing you saw from 2024.
And in my entire life.
I think for a film, I think for a film that was $120 million, I don't think I've seen anything that's cost that much that has been this far wide of what it really should be.
And the cost that took 40 years to make.
I mean that is something. So apparently he got the idea for this film in 1977 was when he had the genesis of the idea. He began writing it in 1983. And then apparently in 1989, he went to Italy to start work on two films, one of them being this film. He then said that this film is so big and so complex that it would seem impossible to make. And then 12 months later, he came out with The Godfather Part 3. So, like, he's had several attempts at getting this film off the ground. And as you say, 40 plus years that he's been working on this movie. Which begs the question, if he's been working on a script for over 40 years at this point, why was there so much improvisation in this movie? Like, the actors were allowed free rein to do whatever the fuck they wanted in this film. So how have you been scripting something and then just said to the actors, crack on, do whatever the fuck you want, lads? I genuinely baffled. Like, the scripts, I mean, to say script is just an insult to script writers because there is no scripting in this movie whatsoever. There can't be. There cannot possibly be any actual scripting done here.
I think the stuff that's so incredibly pretentious has to be. Because they're not even in the thespian world. They're going to come up with something there off the top of the dome piece. And that word came into my head as you took your hat off. So that's your own fault. And the fact that Danny Dyer film's out, and I didn't realise it was out yet. So I need to go and see it.
Marching Powder.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Not yet, no. I am
Oh, not yet. Okay.
gonna watch it as soon as humanly possible. It's a cinema
Barry
marathon.
went to see it on Friday.
I'm
Said
guessing
it's a film.
yeah. I kind of half expected him to tag me in it, saying that it's my kind of film, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what it seems like. But again, I'd rather watch Marching Powder than watch this. But yeah, it just there's some of the stuff, like some of the lines where it's so dreamlike and it's so ethereal and all that kind of thing, and you think, okay, this is not made up on the spot. There's no chance. It's not possible. But then it's so shit at the same time that, like, how is it? It's almost like it's been written. It's took too long. He's overthought it, and it's got to this stage. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make it then.
I like normally we try and pull together what the film's about and stuff. I have absolutely no idea what this film is about. Like I genuinely think I'm normally quite good at like the symbology of stuff, and like I usually see stuff in the film and I can understand where it fits and why it's there and what he's trying to say with it. I haven't got the foggiest with this because I completely agree that this film just feels like it's a hodgepodge of a dozen different half dreamt up ideas that are not explored in any depth whatsoever. Just like from the beginning of the film where we find him stepping off the Chrysler building. I don't know I can't remember what they called it in this, but obviously it's the Chrysler building in the real world, and says, stop time. And then all of a sudden he doesn't fall. But like, so is this going to be sci-fi about, time bending, wibbly wobbly nonsense? And then they go off and start talking about the death of his wife and the disappearance of her body. Oh, so is this a murder mystery? I have no idea, because none of those things are explored any further than that 5-10 seconds where they mention it. Like, there's just no depth whatsoever in this movie, which from Coppola just kind of feels like a really bizarre thing to just skim over. I expect better of him.
It's like all of the films in one film.
Yeah.
It's a bit like in Severance season 1, where the guy who's been PD, who's Petey, who's had the chip reversed, and all his memories are flooded into one thing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this film's like.
It is, isn't it?
I was actually, for 5 minutes, I was quite intrigued. I thought, oh, this is quite cool, actually. I didn't know other than I saw the trailer for it, because the trailer was weird. And I thought, well, I'm never going to remember any of this anyway, so it's fine. And I watched, I thought, oh, that's on the list then. And then never thought about it again until just before Christmas. And that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know how I haven't watched the trailer on it, but I find it must be very difficult to pull anything coherent out of this film to make a trailer to appeal to people, because it's just proper scattergun. Let's tell you what, you're probably right that the first 5 minutes, there's some intrigue there because they don't really tell you a lot. We see him stop the destruction of a building by saying stop time, and Natalie Emmanuel, her character, sees him stop it. She's the only one who's not affected by his time manipulation. And then it cuts to another scene where Adam Driver does one of the Shakespearean monologues, completely apropos of nothing. Like, I don't know why you brought that out here. And then he's trying to build this new world, this new Rome, which is New York, and then it just sort of all falls apart from that point on, because there's no real through line for this story. Like, I don't feel like you learn anything about Adam Driver's character or Natalie Emmanuel or Replace. Like, there's no like meat on the bones of any of these characters throughout this film, which makes it such an incredibly frustrating watch, because you just get a snippet and then on to the next.
Yeah. And everyone is bad in this film. Every single person. Aubrey Plaza, maybe. Okay, maybe she gets a pass. But everyone else, like, they could be amateurs.
I get that. I think Adam Driver is the only one who is trying to give a performance here. Because have you watched Parks and Recreation, Stu?
A long time ago, and not all of it now.
Oh, okay. So Aubrey Plaza's character April, she is like a weirdo, for want of a better word. That's her character. She's a little bit off the wall and a little bit crazy. And she has an alter ego called Janet Snakehole, who is this posh British woman who does nonsense stuff. And it is basically WoW Platinum. So you watch Megalopolis and the whole film is like, well, that's just Janet Snakehole, which is great as a fan of Parks and Rec. But if you're not a fan of Parks and Rec, then like that performance is completely lost on you.
Yeah, and
There are a few performances I didn't hate though, but I think you might be right. I don't think anyone's particularly brilliant in this.
a character name is WoW.
Yeah, yeah. I don't get it because pretty much all the characters are named after Romans. Obviously, you've got Caesar and Cicero and Vestra, the Vestal Virgin. Like, it all nods towards these things from Roman days. But like the Roman Empire isn't something I spend a lot of time thinking about. So I don't know if the plot points in this film, like if they're reflected in the tale of Julius Caesar. I don't know, and I don't care. And they didn't do a good enough job to like do anything in this movie to make me want to discover more.
You not care.
No, but I mean, I really like Shia LaBeouf in this film, and I don't know if I only liked him because it was a Tommy Wiseau level performance. But I guess that might be why.
I think that one is deliberate. I think he's taking the piss.
Mm,
He has to be.
yeah,
Because we've seen him actually not be awful recently.
yeah,
And we know he can do it. And like that weird sex film that he was in. But this seems like a joke. And but that's the problem. You got him playing it like he is, and then you got other people like Adam Driver playing it completely straight and serious. This is not supposed to be a comedy, even though
yeah,
maybe in his head it was. I think that's part of the problem. Like we've already said loads that if you not saying 40 years because would be what one, that if you wrote something when you were at school, so that's you're talking 25 years ago, and then you wrote something when you were at uni, that's part of the same thing, and then you wrote something last week and then try to stitch it together, it'd make no sense because you're a different person in all that time. So yeah, I know he's an older guy and everything, and he's fully formed and whatever, but still, you're not in the same mental place that you are writing something over the space of 5 years. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't, does it?
And it clearly comes out in this nonsense because the biggest problem I had is there's some scenes in there that are amazing, like the stuff with the, where like the statues move and the like the collapse and stuff and all the slow motion. That's amazing. And you got the stuff with the time stuff and that, but then you go from that to the like pre-92 shit CG that's been used. And the weird eye stuff and that megalodon or whatever the substance is called. I can't remember.
Megalon.
Megalon.
Megalon. Yeah.
Megalodons would have been better. Get them out.
Yes, he would.
Dig them up.
Yeah, I think like he needed to find what he was trying to say and just stick to that and remove all the other chaff that is involved in this film and just like be a little bit more specific than he was, because it's just so unfocused that it's funny to watch and I enjoyed it for the wrong reasons, but
yeah,
like it's not one to revisit. And I think that like the obvious comparison kind of feels like The Room, to be honest, because it's the viewpoint of one person who has kind of lost his marbles a little bit, and this is what this feels like. But obviously the fact is that The Room was made for $6 million, was it? And this was made for 120.
Yeah, and the Room is what it is, and there's no. I mean, The Room has always been stupid. I mean, I can't believe whatever he says that was made seriously, because it's a joke. The whole thing is a shambles.
Yeah,
but it's funny because of it. And I remember your mate Commode saying this about this film. because I watched it and I couldn't believe what I just seen. Oh, am I missing the point here? And the fact that he rips it apart and says it's one of the worst films he's ever seen, of all the sheer amount that he's watched, I think, well, actually, yeah. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of things that he says, but his disdain for this nonsense is completely backed up by me because I was visibly angry with it, and I, I had to calm down and then go and pick Corey up from school and not kind of show it in my face. I couldn't even have a drink or anything because it was the middle of the day. And I can't believe I've wasted 2.5 hours of my life on this shit because it's abysmal.
It is a long ass film as well. Like, I think it comes in at just under 2 hours 20, but it feels like it goes on for 4 hours.
It feels like 40 years.
Drags. It does. It really, really drags. One thing that will always stay with me in this film, from this film, though, is Jon Voight's performance with possibly the worst wig I've ever seen on any actor ever. That was atrocious. But the scene where Aubrey Plaza and Shia LaBeouf go to visit him while he's on his deathbed, she asks them about what do you think of this boner? Because he's popping a fucking hard on, apparently. But then he pulls it back and pulls out the tiniest bow and arrow you've ever seen.
Why? Why have a bow and arrow?
I don't know. Why hasn't he got a gun? Like, it was so weird and really out of place. But that's the highlight of this entire film, with a boner joke from Jon Voight.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocking.
And I think you had the advantage of knowing how bad it was, so you could laugh along with it. I mean, at this point, I was just kind of thinking about it is funny, but at the time, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah,
I was so past the point of even laughing at it at this point. I thought, no, just what's going to happen next? And I deliberately didn't check my watch or my phone or anything like that, or the clock, or just to stay in the moment. And I thought, no, I've committed to this. I want to see it through. And it felt like when you had your GCSE exams and you sat there and you had half hour to go, and it felt like all day because you were just sitting there staring at things. That's what this film felt like.
Like, the urge to check your phone has never been stronger than watching this film, has it? Another thing that gets me, so I'm just going to quickly pull up the cast list. I think I've got it somewhere open. There we go. So looking at the cast list on this, obviously Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, Natalie Emmanuel, Aubrey Plaza, Shia LaBeouf, Larry Fishburne's in this film as well, Jon Voight, Jason Schwartzman, Talia Shire. It's Dustin Hoffman. Fucking Dustin Hoffman was in this film. What was he doing? What was any of these actors, one of these big name actors, outside of maybe 2 or 3 of them? I couldn't tell you what their characters were, what they did, what they brought to the table. None of them were on screen for more than a couple of minutes. And I don't really remember hardly any of them having anything to say. Why on earth were these actors okay in this role? Why would they come to this film? I'd love to see the original scripts that were presented to them, because there's nothing for any of them to be interested in, surely.
It has to just be the Coppola thing. And the whole, this is my last film, come and work with me if you want. It has to be. Because like you said, the script ain't getting them in. The visual effects are not getting them in. The idea of it's not getting them in. It's got to be just a lovey kind of a tribute act more than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, why is Cage not in this film? That'd make more sense.
I've got that as a question written down here, because we had at least 4 other Coppolas in this movie. We had Talia Shire, we had his granddaughter, Jason Schwartzman, and there was someone else who I can't remember off the list. But yeah, there was at least 4 that I clocked when watching it. And you think, well, surely, why haven't you got the best Coppola? Why haven't you got Nick Cage in this film? And I kind of think if this film came to life in 1991 when he was, originally started in earnest, would Nicolas Cage have been Adam Driver's character?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. And maybe not even 91, maybe 2001, when got in 60 Seconds era.
Yeah.
That would have been perfect. Perfect age, perfect timing. Still on the back of some massive films, not that long before. It wouldn't have looked any worse. And other than Aubrey Plaza, obviously, the rest of them can still have been here. Anyway, so.
Yeah, true.
And I think what sums it up more than anything else is the fact that he had to pay for this himself. And that no studio, even with his name, his reputation, and what this meant to him, and the whole thing about it being the last one, they all turned it down anyway.
I mean, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years, really, about studios being reluctant to finance projects. I know, like David Lynch, they wouldn't produce stuff on Netflix for him, and the guy who did Mindhunter, Fincher. Like, a lot of these companies that they do seem reluctant to give older professionals a chance. Even Scorsese's had issues trying to fund stuff where he's done it himself. And look, I do think there are issues that need ironing out in the studio processes. But skipping this film is definitely not one of those misfires. Like, I can absolutely understand why, if they've seen, if he's gone to them with this proposal, I can see why they'd be reluctant to give him 100 million. Even as a vanity project, there's nothing about this film, as a work of Francis Ford Coppola's, that would make you want to go and watch it. And he's done some of the all-time greats, but there's just nothing on the table here to bring an audience in.
No. There is nothing at all. And even from a funny point of view, it's not funny.
No.
There's times where you can laugh at parts of it in retrospect. And if you were watching it for like a film version of Gogglebox or whatever, and you had to kind of enjoy it from a sick point of view, you could kind of find something from it then. But to go in thinking, okay, there's some funny bits in this, but then it's so weird and bizarre by the time you get to the funny bits, you kind of worn down.
Yeah. Like, you do check out pretty quickly in this film, I find.
Even completionists are going to struggle with it. And there's got to be Adam Driver completionists and the fishes and everything else.
But
no, just no. I mean, have you watched Daredevil yet?
No.
That is the same as it was before. It feels the same. And the fact that it's 18 rated on Disney Plus anyway, and it's got it in big little in the corner saying 18 plus.
Okay.
And for very good reason. Let's just say that. First 2 episodes out now. The CG in that is exactly the same as it was before. It looked ropey then. It's entirely consistent with it now. He's running around and jumping and stuff like that. It always looked bad anyway, didn't it? So, not really a problem. But the fact that they've kept it to the original vision and not marvelled it up and not put it into the MCU, yeah, good. Disney could have done this. Netflix could have done this. But both of them said no.
Yeah. I didn't understand. I remember texting you when I first started watching it and saying to you, why is everything piss yellow?
Yeah.
I don't understand why they've got this weird yellow filter. I'm assuming they're trying to say that it's the Golden City, and it's like, it didn't make it look golden. It didn't make it look high end. And the fact that he talks about this city like it needs to be torn down and Megalon, the new city, needs to replace it. So in actuality, the way they talk about it doesn't make it a golden city either. God, this film is a mess. Like, there's no other way of putting it, is that this film is a mess.
Yeah. Now, I kind of took it as it just looked like you'd imagine old Rome to be. Just normal old Rome, not this shit Rome. They just put a yellow wash on it to kind of put it in a kind of sand, give it a stylized look. And then I thought, they're going to go whites and blues and stuff for the future stuff. I thought it was as simple as that. And they kind of did in a way. But again, a shout out to all things like this. The Corridor Crew episode where they ripped this apart is genius.
Oh, okay.
Because
I'm going to have to check that out, because I need more information on what the fuck's going on here.
There's one. I'll say one thing. There's one scene, where you got the crowd at the end and they're shaking
Yeah.
the fence.
Mm.
Or so he goes from one perspective to another perspective, and more they just flip the image.
I suppose that, yeah.
They vertical flip
That
the
makes
image
sense.
to make it look like it was twice as big.
Yeah, that I can see it, yeah. Makes sense, doesn't it? Ridiculous. So before I rewatched it again today, I checked on Copilot AI just to say, what is this film about? Just, give me some ideas. This film is a complex tapestry of ambition, power, and the struggle to mold the future against a backdrop of societal challenges. It reflects on urban life, human ingenuity, and the compromises embedded in the pursuit of progress. Now, that to me actually sounds quite interesting. I don't recognize any of those words in this film whatsoever.
I mean, human progress, the elements and all them weird slide things everywhere. His eye, which is just bizarre. Never
I forgot about the eye. Yeah.
just not explained. I can understand it from a fall around thing. That's how they do fall around at school. I mean, and you are talking 30 odd years ago, but still. But if you're going to do that, just do it normally. Don't put it into something else. And then try and make it sci-fi and then not sci-fi, and then have bow and arrows for no reason, carry on knob jokes and weird dreamlike sequences. Oh, when they were walking on top of that fucking bubble thing in the middle of the air. Why? What was that about?
No idea.
Not explained.
When he is tending to his dead wife in their bed, even though she's obviously dead, and he's like fussing over her and stuff, and then it cuts to Natalie Manuel's character watching him fussing over nothing because she's not there. Like, all these things, just they're not explored or explained to any level of satisfaction whatsoever.
It feels like it should be another hour long.
It does. Like, it feels like there's a lot missing in this film that would like clear it all up, but I don't know if that exists. I don't know if it's bad editing or bad directing, or it's probably both, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. And would if this is trimming it down and it's still 2 hours 20 and it's still this bad, can you imagine how bad it would be 3 hours 20?
Yeah, I'd love to know. There can't be a director's cut out there. This has got to be the director's cut because he's funded it.
Yeah.
So he's not gonna fund it himself and then restrict himself from doing what he wants for his swan song. Which I'm just looking at his filmography now, and since like 2006 was probably the last film of his, Marie Antoinette, that I particularly remember watching, the Kristen Dunst film. Everything else, looking at him, like, he hasn't done a lot in the 21st century that's, massively important compared to what he was doing in the 70s, 80s.
It's like living off a reputation more than anything else.
Oh, and he produced that as well, I think. I don't think he even directed that one. I think he was just a producer. Yeah. It feels like he's a legendary director, but based purely on everything before 1990, The Godfather Part 3. He did Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which it's not a film I love, but it is a film that is loved. Jack with Robin Williams. I remember enjoying that, but I also think it probably doesn't hold up now.
And Peggy Sue Got Married, that we talked about and was very underwhelmed by.
Yeah. Like, I think when you look at the period of the 80s, he's got a few with Nick. Obviously, he's got Peggy Sue Got Married. He's got The Cotton Club, The Outsiders, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. He does have this Rumblefish as well, which was one that I did really enjoy. He does have this, I say trilogy, it's more than a trilogy, with Nick Cage, again, in the 80s, that were decent. But then, yeah, you're looking back to like 79 Apocalypse Now, Godfather, both of those were 72, 74, the first two. Yeah, I think he made his impact and then has kind of floundered probably for the last 25 years, 30 years maybe.
Yeah, it's a bit like the like Mark Hughes as a manager.
What a nice reference. Yeah, yeah, you are right. Mhm. Yeah. So, I don't know what else to say about Issue other than you're probably right. It is one of the worst films that's been released in the last 12 months. There's very few films. I mean, even there's films that I've probably been more bored with. Like I was more bored watching Joker Follow You Do. That was just boring. That film was, which you have now seen, haven't you?
Yeah. I've seen it, and there was no point even doing this about it because it was just boring.
Mm.
There was nothing more to say. I don't know what it was for, why it was made, what the point was. Didn't understand really. I mean, I was intrigued about it. Like we talked about it over and over again, didn't we? When it was announced, and is this a good idea? Should it have been left like it was? I obviously liked the first one a lot more than you did.
Mhm.
But it was its own story. There was no need for this. And then when this happened, it's kind of happened, didn't work, went away, and no one's mentioned it since.
That is the thing. Like nobody talks about it, even like what are we 6 months on or so from the film, and yeah, no one discusses it because there's nothing really to discuss about the movie. I remember at the time there was a lot of people saying that it was made a safe you to the fans of the original because I think the fans of the original kind of lionized Arthur Fleck, and obviously he's not a character to be admired. He's a character to kind of be repelled by. So it was a bit of a fuck you to those, I think was the point, but I don't need to see a $200 million go fuck yourself movie. Like, it's just not interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I love, like, I'm a big fan of Joaquin Phoenix and Gaga, but neither of them really did anything worth, sitting there for 2.5 hours to watch.
The
Real
trailers,
thinker.
yeah, the trailer's probably better than the film.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a damning indictment of that film. Like, even the musical numbers, like, the bare minimum is at least the music's usually listenable. I don't think any of the songs are particularly memorable. I know it's mostly jukebox stuff, but Joaquin Phoenix is not a singer.
No, and he can't do it. He can't
No.
sing.
No. That's a massive drawback in a musical.
Yeah. I mean, we really with Pierce Brosnan, but that was funny. Because at least he tried.
Yeah.
It's a bit like me, but I know how bad I am, so I won't try.
Mm.
I'm getting paid silly money, and it's just not going to be worth it. But for some people, it obviously is. That's the only thing that Megalopolis was missing. Some kind of sing and dance nonsense going on.
It does feel like it needs to end on a musical number, doesn't it, when they're in Times Square?
I mean, how it does end is just, again, it is what it is. But yeah.
Yeah.
Like, where's this plot point come from in the last 15 minutes of the film that's not been there for the last 200 bit? Like that thing where they were standing on them girders. I thought that was pretty cool. That was a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, this bit tension here. Like what where they were meeting in this kind of warehouse like thing. Never explained.
No, not at all. Like, they do these odd bits that remind you of classic New York. Like, the girders is obviously that picture of the people building the Rockefeller Center sat on the girders. Like, they intimate these things. But the problem is every shot that is done at ground level looks like it's filmed in Toronto. Like, it looks like they've just done a Canadian shoot for tax purposes. Nothing about this film looks like New York, even though they keep trying to remind you that it's supposed to be New York, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's not consistent enough for the visual effects to be stylized either.
No,
Like,
not.
they're not. It wouldn't surprise. I mean, they've obviously used volume some places. They've obviously used green screen. Some of it is mentally practical effects, which is the best bits, and miniatures. But it's completely wasted on this pile of shit that is the rest of the film.
Yeah, it's a real disappointment, I think. To go out on this movie, just an incredible damp squib. of a film to call your magnum opus. The one thing this film obviously does look onto is legacy. They do discuss the legacy of Adam Driver's Caesar. That's a big thing, and I think that is obviously mirrored in the fact that this is Francis Ford Coppola's legacy. This is the film that I think it's obviously his labor of love 40 years later, and you think, well, you could have done better, mate.
Mm.
Like, I think given that much time, pretty much anyone could probably do better in writing a film. Not good. It's not good. No. Right. Okay. So next week, we're swapping another film. I've given Stu the film Hundreds of Beavers to watch, which is it's not a silent film because it's got all sound effects and stuff to it, but there's no dialogue in it. It's very physical comedy, and you'll either go one of two ways with it, Stu. You'll either really enjoy it or you'll hate it, because there's elements of like Rick and Aid, like bottom moments of silly violence, turned up to 11 to make it pretty much cartoonish. So I'm really intrigued to see which way you're going to go on it. So that's the only reason really that I've given it to yourself to watch. See where we go with it.
Well, that's what I thought with this. I thought you might actually find something in Megalopolis from an extreme film student's point away, but there's nothing quite. It's too film student for its own good.
Yeah, it's it. Like the first time I watched it just with the eye of looking for the gags in it, and the second time I watched it, I was like, I actually want to try and break it down and see what the mise en scène is doing, and it's just fucking impossible. It is impossible. It just doesn't. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't lend itself to being studied, this film, which is kind of magical when you think about it. Yeah, never mind. Right, so next up we're going to be reviewing another Francis Ford Coppola film. This one is from 1983 and it is called The Outsiders. Welcome back. Stu, I'd never heard of this film till like 12 months ago when I was in New York, and it's now on Broadway, a show called The Outsiders, and it's said by Francis Ford Coppola. So I was a bit confused. I was like, oh, okay, so is this a film that's been adapted? Has he written a play? And looked into it, and then obviously I found out, it's one that we need to watch in the future because it's a Cage film. So the reason that I've brought it forward in the running order is because of going back to New York. If the chance arises, will this be something worth visiting on the stage? Had you got any idea of this film before, or is this new to yourself?
No, absolutely no clue. And it was only when we started looking at the cast, and I thought, no way, how is this possible?
The hell of a cast, isn't it? This,
and I took a photo of the screen when the credits came up at the end, just to get them all in one place. And I was showing people at the match yesterday. I said, look at this. And when do you think this was made? And there's obviously people on there who you've never seen or heard of since, who, compared to some of the others on there, you think, yeah, it's a bit of a shame when you kind of headlining films in the 80s and then everyone else on there involved goes on to bigger and better things. But I had no idea. And very much like Rumblefish, which I think is better than this anyway. Yeah. It was just one that was just buried in the annals of internet history. That no one had even mentioned this in any film podcast or any podcast whatsoever that I ever listened to. No one had brought this film up in a filmography or referenced it in an interview with any of the stars in it. So it was a complete surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. So the cast, C. Thomas Howell, he's not a name I recognise in the modern day. Neither is Glenn Withrow. Darren Dalton, I don't know him. Leif Garrett, I think, is the first one of the main guys who I recognise the name of. But we've then got Matt Dillon, Ralph Macchio, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, Diane Lane, Tom Waits, all in this movie. Sofia Coppola, she's got like a very small role, and obviously Nick Cage. let's get straight to Nick Cage. I've no idea who Nick Cage was in this film. I think he's in the Rumble scene. But I watched it a couple of, I couldn't quite work out who he was in this.
No, and I even had to Google it to try and find it, and all they had was freeze frames from Rumblefish. It was not even from this. So I thought it might have been one where at the very start, when they're meeting for the first time. And
Yes.
I thought it might have been a bit like one of them people, but no clue.
No, it's like there's a couple of people who it could be, but there's no one I could definitively say that was him. He's actually he's uncredited in this movie, but on IMDb it's got the character name listed as Sock Number 1. So he's got to be somebody in one of the fight scenes somewhere. That's the only thing that makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
So in terms of the question, was he good or bad? I have absolutely no idea. He could have been the best background actor you've ever seen for all I know, and that's why we didn't realise who he was.
Yeah. You just didn't. He's invisible, so doesn't feature, which is kind of a shame, really. Knowing that Rumblefish was only a few months after, and he's not a big star in that either. But there was points in this film I thought, I hate this. Just please end. And then within minutes, thought this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. And it was like it flitted between both emotions like over and over again throughout the whole thing. And I thought it's just old. It's just his age. It's being a coming of age film from that era of I mean it's older than me just about. It's we've talked about this before, how we've got a memory of something we never experienced through stuff like this. And obviously it's based in the 60s, isn't it? So you can go and watch many other things based in the 60s, mainly Greece, 50s and whatever. But I thought the soundtrack was superb.
Yeah, it was brilliant, wasn't it?
Cool as fuck, that soundtrack. And some of the stuff like the burning building, I thought, what, really? And I would say, I mean, we'll get straight to it. I would and have recommended this film that if people can find it, go and watch it, because I thought there is something there. And I didn't really expect to say that, because Rumblefish, you can't. The colour thing with Rumblefish was the best part about it, really.
Yeah.
For me, even though it was good in its own right, but not spectacular. I thought this was interesting at the very least, and not just seeing the stars in probably the first or at the very least early roles, like Tom Cruise doing stunts. Of course, why wouldn't he be?
Of course he is.
What is he jumping off cars for? There's no need.
It's what he does, isn't it?
He's always been this way.
Yeah.
And Matt Dillon being a bit of a bellend. And there's things in this that you see, you've kind of grown into these roles in different films further down the line. But
yeah,
I had strange feelings about it.
I've got to say, I mostly enjoyed it. There's not a lot that I thought was terrible in this movie, if I'm honest. I think on the good side, I thought Ralph Macchio was really good in this film.
Yeah, he was.
It's kind of mad that his career pretty much lives and dies with Daniel LaRusso. Like, he seems quite charismatic. He has a screen presence when he's on there. I don't know why he struggled to get out of the shadow of the Karate Kid, because this showed me that he had something, and I just don't understand how he got so typecast with that one role.
I mean, there was one thing about him in this. Why is he a different colour? Like, is this an Italian thing where he's just got more pale over the years when he's grown up? Because I knew he was in it, and I thought, is it really him? Because he looked really, really dark.
Yeah, potentially, like, he looks like he could be, like, his olive skin probably undersells it. Like, he looks like he could be from East Asia almost, how dark his skin looks compared to what we see in his later life. I do wonder if it's a case of just as he's aged, it's a case of his skin changing colour, because he does look very dark in this movie.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Obviously, Michael Jackson aside, you generally, I can't remember the last time this has happened. I've seen someone, I thought, you don't look like yourself. And
No.
maybe it is just something like that. We obviously, being bald white men, we don't have these problems or these things that happen to people. But yeah, he was as a child actor or child adjacent as they are. None of them are shit.
No, not at all.
Astonishing when there's so many of them.
Yeah, like, you watching it and there's no shakiness to it. And, like, with kid actors, there's usually that little bit of suspension of disbelief I think you have to put up with these actors, and there was none of that. Like, you kind of felt like they were all quite genuine to it, which I thought was excellent. Like, C. Thomas Howell, the guy who played Ponyboy, like, he was a really good lead of this film, because this movie, I think, pretty much lives and dies on his shoulders. I think if he's shit, the rest of the film just falls apart. But actually, he's very sympathetic throughout it.
Yeah. And being called Ponyboy as well. That's
I mean, that is the worst. I'm assuming it's his nickname and not his fucking
well, they did say
Christian's name.
they did say that was the name he was given.
Oh, did they? I
Yeah, they said
forgot
it.
that.
They said it when they were talking about names and stuff and all the things that he's gone through. They mentioned that. I thought, well, that's a bit cruel.
It's a bit of the boy named Sue, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. But like the whole thing, like the driving scene where you've got him being a bit of a sex pest, and he kind of sticks up for him. He stands up to him and all that kind of. I thought, yeah, this is really good,
Yeah.
really good stuff. And I mean, all I could think of was, oh, this is like a teenage version of the Warriors, and
Yeah, I see that, definitely. The bad then, Stu, what have you got on your list?
it just. Again, I think it is just because of the age of the film and the fact that it's a bit slow in parts, where it doesn't really need to be.
Yeah.
And it does kind of drag along, and there is a lot of things where I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I get it, these teddy boys and all this kind of stuff. And you are expecting them to get the combs out and putting the combs in the back pocket, the jeans and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't quite go there. But then you think, like, this was only like 25 years after it was set. So it's not like thinking of basing a film in the 50s, 60s now.
Yeah, true.
It's like basing a film in the 90s now.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And the fact that it's even closer than that is mad when you think of it that way.
Yeah.
I think my only issue was I hadn't seen it before. So I was going in blind, watching a film, a 40-year-old film with no context whatsoever, with child actors, thinking it might be something that it's not. And when it was good, it was very good. And like I said, the music was superb. Don't know how they got the clearance to use all that stuff, especially with a film with this budget. But yeah, I think it's just the pacing. I think that's it. And the fact that I'm really nitpicking here, because I did enjoy it in the end. Like I said, I'd go from a lull to then massive high again within minutes. So
Yeah.
I think just the pacing. But again, that's a time issue, and that's probably a me issue more than anything else.
I'd agree with that. On mine, I've got, I mean, it's a spoiler for the ending, but the deaths of Johnny and Dally fell a little bit flat, I feel. Like, I know it's a coming of age story, and it implies that their deaths are what kick Ponyboy on to, coming back to reality and moving on with his life. But it didn't really have that emotional gut punch that I think that, as an audience member, I really wanted something that's a bit more devastating, I think. And it just kind of felt a little bit, maybe sugar-coated might be the word. It just felt a little bit too easy, almost. And I think that it lacked a bit of something there. 'Cause I feel like with coming-of-age stories, it probably needed to go a little bit further. Like, there's always this bit of tension with a coming-of-age story, that the best coming-of-age stories are probably ones where the people who would get the most out of it are probably going to be a bit too young to actually see it in the cinema. And it kind of felt like this was pitching it at a maybe too young an age. I don't know.
Yeah,
It felt like it could have been that this was pitched to 12-year-olds when actually this story, if they'd done it for a more of a not, maybe mid to late teens and actually gone a little bit harder, actually given it a bit of teeth, I think they could have done something quite special with this film.
yeah,
And because they didn't, it didn't quite work on that level.
yeah. This is a PG, so
There you go. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that explains why the death scenes are like what they are.
Yeah, it does.
But again, it's still mass beatings and attacking people with things and objects for a PG. I mean, that is a PG now. I'm guessing not what it was. It might have been bigger when it was released.
Yeah, potentially.
But yeah, that does absolutely make sense. That this could have been. What's the pitch? The pitch is this for what people leaving high school as a kind of these are your Halligan days, stick with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Rather than young adults 18 to 21 before you legally get the alcohol down you. Back then over there. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly good observation, really. And it kind of makes sense now, thinking about it. Like, like you didn't see the burns when
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
you saw him on the table and it was kind of hinted at. And I thought, oh, he's going to look destroyed. But he was still very much human. Obviously, they had a budget and everything as well. But yeah, he didn't seem like someone who'd been burnt to death in a wooden shack.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Have you got anything on your crazy list?
When they're crazy, I already said it about Tom Cruise jumping off cars already. And the fact that we don't even see Nick Cage in this is crazy enough as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was strangely impressed. I suppose that's crazy as well. I didn't expect to. Yeah, it was a good one for the list that we can't really put it in there because he's not in it.
Yeah, that's it. So on my crazy list, so if I'd have known before this episode, we could have timed it perfectly because The Outsiders was released on the 25th of March, 1983. So this episode is going to be going out on, let me have a look. So it's the 9th recording. So it's going out on the 11th. So yeah, 2 weeks later, it would have been that, but that's the week I'm in New York. So we've already preempted that one. So yeah, it could have been the perfect release if I'd have known sooner. The other thing I've got is apparently Cage wanted the role, which went to Matt Dillon. Uncle Francis offered him 2-bit, so that's the character who was killed. Cage turned that down, ultimately opting only to cameo in the Rumble scene. Like, it's kind of wild that at Cage's age at this point that he can be so picky about the roles that he's choosing. Like, especially when I think at this point, all he got under his belt was the cameo in Fast Times at Ridgemont High and that weird TV movie, The Best of Times. That's all he's got, and he's telling Francis, "No, I'm not doing that, mate. I want something substantial or not at all."
Yeah, and I think Fast Times is a better film than this.
Yeah. I think when it comes to coming of age comedies, I like there to be a bit of humour to them more so than... Like, I think a coming of age story needs to be a comedy more so than a coming of age drama, I think.
Yeah, because everyone went through the drama themselves. They don't want to watch it.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you can still tell this story and put some humour in there as well. Like, I don't think that would have been beyond the realms, but I mean, that's like you said before, it's been nitpicky because I did really enjoy this film still, nonetheless. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
So obviously that's the next question is, did you enjoy it? Would you recommend it? So you said you have recommended it to people, Stu.
Yeah. I was talking to him. I thought there was Americans over this weekend, and specifically from New York. Share Dave. Yeah, they were over, and weirdly enough, he inflicted wolves on his New York born and raised wife, and she infected the Jets on him. So I've now got a fellow New York Jets Wolves fan to add to the collection of suffering.
Ridiculous.
But he hadn't heard of it either, and he's lived in New York for 10 years. So there we are.
That says a lot, doesn't it? Same for me though. I did enjoy this. Like, I don't feel like it dragged or anything. I didn't think it was I think it was an hour and 50, something like that, and
Yeah.
it went, at a reasonable pace throughout. Don't get me wrong, it's not the best Coppola film we've seen, and it's not the best Coppola film we've seen starring Nick Cage that was even released in 1983. Because as you said, Rumblefish is a few months after this one. But it was a good movie nonetheless. It's not one to write home about, and, it's when we finally come to do the grand Nick Cage-a-thon, this will be somewhere in the middle probably,
Yeah.
and that's absolutely fine. So, I enjoyed this one. Cage, good or bad, that is null and void on this one. If you enjoyed The Outsiders, you may also like, I've got 2 films on my list, Stu, but what have you got?
I mean, we've already mentioned Rumblefish and Past Times. Sundown Nice Fire, bit older, a bit more serious.
Yeah.
Again, it's the closest I was thinking. I mean, it's going to be ruined now because of that stupid Goat Virgin Media advert taking the music. Which when I used to listen to that on my YouTube music playlist, and I was pretty unique, and no one had heard it. No one knew what it was. I thought,
Yeah.
but now it's everywhere. It's kind of ruined. But yeah, Sundown Nice Fire is a decent film.
Yeah, it is a good one. I've got Rumblefish as well on my list. Obviously, it's the same director. It's got a number of the same cast. The author wrote the novel of both Rumblefish and this. So I think there is quite a lot of similarities between the two. The only difference, obviously, is there's more Cage in Rumblefish than there is in this. The other film that I've got is Stand By Me. I think feels similar. 'Cause, again, it's an 80s film set in the 60s, if I remember correctly. So again, it's got, it feels very similar.
Yeah, that works.
In that film for a good few years, to be fair. I do love Stand By Me.
I can't remember the last time I saw it. Probably at uni. It feels like a uni kind of film.
Potentially. I think I've got it on DVD somewhere, to be honest. I wouldn't mind reading the book, but I've got to be honest, I've never read a lot of Stephen King because, the only time I've bought a couple of Stephen King books to try, but then the writing has been so fucking small, and there's 700 pages in so many of his books. I'm like, it's so off-putting. Which I know, if you read books, that shouldn't really matter, but at the same time, I think, well, I'm going to be here forever and a day reading this.
Yeah, get it on Kindle and blow it up. Your old
That
boys.
might be the idea, yeah. Or just get the audio book and have someone read it to me. I think that might be the best bet. I was looking at a list the other day, and it was the top 10 longest Stephen King books. And the top 10 starts with a book that's 760 pages long. And that's the 10th. He's got ones that go up to 1,200 pages. Oh, well, they're just never going to get read. That's too much. The Dark Tower series, he's got 4 of those books in the top 10 longest books that he's ever written, sorry.
At least it's consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just flows.
Yeah. I mean, really should be paid per word. I think he'd probably be even richer than he already is, to be honest. Be coining it in. Yeah. Right, okay, that's us done this week. What have we got next week? So we'll be looking at Hundreds of Beavers. There's probably a better way of putting this. Hundreds of Beavers, and The Ant Bully is going to be the other film we're watching. Have you seen The Ant Bully, Stu?
Yeah, I've seen it. Again, I watched it with my stepson. I had it on DVD. We watched it multiple times back then. I mean, you are talking, he's 22 now, so probably... Yeah, you're talking a good 12, 13, 14 years ago, something like that, last time I saw it. But it's all right. It's okay.
Okay. I know nothing about it. It just says 2006 family adventure film. The animation looks all right.
It's not certain cave-based animation film. It's not up that level.
Right, okay.
It's decent enough.
Okay, I'm kind of looking forward to it because we haven't really done a lot of animation on this podcast. Like I say, it's probably The Croods, and we had the Christmas Carol one that he was in as well. I can't think of many other animations. Astro Boy as well.
Yeah, it's better than Astro Boy. Fucking hell.
Yeah, that's not a difficult one to beat, is it? That.
Yeah, wait for the big film.
The G-Force, isn't it, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is penciled in for later in the year at some point. So yeah, next week, Hundreds of Beavers in the first half, and then The Ant Bully in the second half. Make sure you subscribe to whatever podcatcher that you listen to us on, and a 5-star review would be tremendous. Any emails, or if you want to contact us on social media, it's at cagefightingpod and cagefightingpod@gmail.com. And for this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah, goodbye, everyone. And remember, smoke woodbines.
It's goodbye from me too, and remember, be excellent to each other.